I think we are live now. Okay, yeah. Hello, everyone. Namaskar. My name is Kanaga, and I'm accompanied by Hari, who will be the host of today's session. Hope everyone is keeping safe in these tough stay-home conditions. Now, given the circumstances, we welcome you all to yet another lecture series from Sambash. And this time, we got an opportunity to host our guest, Mr. Sree Iyer, for the second time in our channel. Welcome, Mr. Iyer, once again in Sambash.
Namaskaram. It's always a pleasure to be on your channel.
Thank you. So, as famously quoted, what on earth can be more luxurious than a sofa, a book, and a cup of coffee? Not many people like to read, but the ongoing conditions have forced, I think force would be a strong word here. So, I would rather use taught people like me who are seasonal readers to give it a try. And that led us to choose the topic of the day, as our team is very curious about your new latest book, sir, Who Painted My Money White? And we wanted to get some more insights into the book. So today, we take this moment to dive in a bit deeper to understand the thought process that went behind in writing this book. First of all, congratulations on the book. Our
Thank you.
team, our team did read the book, and I must say it is inquisitive and surreal. Before we before we start off, a quick note to all the people who are watching us live today. Now that we have an opportunity to interact with Mr. Iyer, feel free to post your questions in YouTube chat and appreciate that if you can keep those questions related to the topic of the day. Thank you. So before getting into the book, Mr. Iyer, we would like to know what was the trigger point or when it occurred that you should write a book. Was it a childhood dream or a later found love? I'm not talking about just this book because you have written already a couple of books earlier. So is it just exploring the author side of your personality?
Yes, and thank you for once again for giving me this opportunity to be on your channel. Kanaka, the thought that I could actually write came to me when I had morphed from a startup software firmware guy to more of a systems engineering guy. In systems engineering, you're dealing with multiple disciplines of engineering. You're talking about a chemical process, a mechanical process, an electrical process, and a computer science control system that is sort of turning on a certain thing, turning off a certain thing, heating something else. You see that concept of a system. I was working on that kind of a field for about 2 years. And then my role there was to be an architect. An architect in this kind of a scenario is somebody who knows a little bit of everything. You know, you need to know a little bit of chemical engineering, a little bit of mechanical, a little bit of physics, optics, what have you, even medical equipment. So when I was doing these things, I realized that I was able to hold the attention of an accountant of a company all the way across to the PhD, who was an MIT graduate, who's actually dreaming up this thing. You see, so this is a wide swath, and trying to be able to present a certain product's architecture requires a certain amount of skill, and I seem to have it because people used to ask me questions. Usually what will happen is, I don't know if you've been to a PhD dissertation. I have, and I can tell you only the speaker, the guy who's defending his thesis, and his advisor will know what he's talking about. The rest will be there for the coffee, the biscuits, and so, you know, some of your friends who are just your, you know, just to make up the numbers. Usually everybody else is just there, and afterwards they'll say, oh, it was a good talk or good defense. So I wanted to try and make sure that whatever it is that's being discussed is something that is disseminated across the board, and that's where I realized that I could perhaps write. And more importantly, I could mix graphics and text and present it in a way where if somebody wanted to go beyond the text, you could look at the graphics. I mean, I'm a firm believer. There's an adage saying one picture is worth 1,000 words. So I guess I tried to really test that. And I found that sometimes it was very successful, sometimes not so much. It's a learning process. Anyway, so this is where my ability to write started. And then when I started pgurus.com, before that, a few months before that, I wanted to really test it out on the test out the waters, so to say, to find out if people really thought I could write. And I published a couple of articles, I think in Money Life magazine, which talks about financial industry of India and so on and so forth. And they actually published it. And one of them was about high frequency trading and how it affects you. At that time, I was not aware that there was a scam going on in National Stock Exchange. I did not know it, honest to God. I was just, working in US, and I was occasionally going to India. I had no clue that this was playing out. It started from 2010 and played out till 2014. And suddenly somewhere they said, no, you can write well. And this was a fairly longish article. It brought in a bunch of YouTube videos and it talked about another book which was written by Michael Lewis. The name is escaping me right now, but that was the trigger for me to say, look, there is something here. It is possible that India could be also exploiting this. And from that point forward, I started writing articles and I started focusing on finance. And even this book, this is a trilogy. It's part one of a money trilogy, because to me, India assumes a lot of things that it should not be assuming. For example, it assumes that the piece of paper that somebody presents to you is actually currency. And I wanted to open people's eyes to the reality that somebody actually wove a big tale around this fact that a simple piece of paper is passing off as currency. And that's how this whole thing panned out. Uh, Who Painted My Money White was my first fictional book. And that's, I think, book number 5.
Thank you, Sree. Moving on slightly into the book, Who Painted My Money White? How did it strike for you to have such a title and write it as a thriller?
So the idea for the book came to me when I think around 2016 or 17, because I've had some interaction with people who were talking about this, about the fake currency, container loads arriving in Kochi seaport. And this was again, it's all spark leading to a story. There were 2 data points, okay? One was the fact that fake currency arrived in Kochi, and the other data point was that demonetization happened on 8th November 2016. And I wanted to bridge those 2 points. And one thing that kind of piqued my curiosity was, why was the shape of the currency being changed when demonetization happened? Because it threw up a whole bunch of work for the people who were doing these ATMs maintenance, because they had to physically go in and set the parameters for 500 and 2,000 rupee notes. And they also had to change the software to say there's a 2,000 instead of, the currency, some other changes also had to be done. Let me put it that way. So why did the government go to such great lengths to do this? And the curious cat inside me said, maybe there's a story to be written in this. And that somebody can write a fictional story based on a few data points was made clear to me when I was watching or reading a book by John Grisham, who I'm a great admirer of, by the way. John Grisham's Firm was only one of his books, but his best books are something else. In my opinion, his best book was a book called Playing for Pizza. If you ever get your hands on it, read it. It's not at all about legal stuff. It's about something else. And John Grisham is a superb storyteller. And he wrote his foreword for a book called Camino Island. And he said, the idea for me came based on a small 2-column news item that appeared in the local newspaper. And that's what triggered him to write about the book. So it's all these little things. They said, okay, maybe I have these 2 data points. Maybe I can write a book too. See, these are all easy to guess that, let me just go and write a book. I didn't even think, wait a minute, till now, I was a facts-based writer, that most of my books are all based on facts. And people have accepted them. I'm not saying that they didn't. Some have panned them, but that's okay. That is par for the course. How will they like me in this new avatar as a writer of fiction? I didn't even think about it. Sometimes, you take this plunge not knowing the depth of the water that you are getting into. And I must say I was lucky. That's the only way I can explain this. I was just lucky.
Yeah, indeed. I think the fiction part, indeed, yeah, when you say that you wanted to write it as a fiction, but I read this book and I found that there is a very thin line with respect to the reality. So, because I'm the one who has grown up in Delhi and I was very close to the politics, so I can relate to the things that the character names, even. Yeah, when you say Mailapur Damodaran, Deepika Sharma, Gulab Sharma, and likes. So these characters, they reflect personalities in real life. Yeah? But then why would you like to call it as a fiction in this case?
If it were to be fact, then it would have to be 100% accurate. There are some things there that perhaps are not accurate. So I wanted to let my imagination flow. And that's how I said, okay, I'm going to write this as a fiction. In fact, a famous publisher warned me saying that today's genre is nonfiction, it's fact. And people are not really keen on reading fictional books. And so I said, I'll self-publish it. So I had figured out the worst case. What's the worst case that's going to happen if nobody bought the book? I knew what that was. Once I knew that, it didn't really, stop me from the. I'm just going to go and write it. I have to find out for myself if people have a taste for this or not. And also one little nugget that I have not mentioned before. You mentioned the name Mailapur Damodaran, right? I don't know how many of our viewers today are readers of Tamil magazines like Kumudam, Ananda Vigadan, and so on. 30, 40 years ago, there was a humorist. He used to go by the pen name Kadugu. Kadugu means mustard, by the way. And he used to write a series of stories where there are two contestants or competitors, I should say. Both are budding writers and both will always take part in literary contests. There used to be a time when people used to publish. Kumudam will say there's a literary contest, whoever wins the prize will get so much prize, and their thing will be published as a series. So in those things, he used to define two characters. One, the first guy's name was Mailapur Damodaran, and his short name was Maida. The second part that I have not used so far, that guy was supposed to be Tandayar Pettai Yageswaran, and he used to go as Dania. So the battle used to be between Maida and Dania, and they'll be each outguessing the other guy. What is the other guy going to write about for this competition? Let me do something different. Hilarious, situations, and that's how this Maida name stuck in my mind. I have to use this thing, and since there was a character that kind of resembled that became a fit.
Thank you, Sree. Very modest in saying you saw both coins of the book in when what will happen when you said what will happen when the book fails. But your book is now Amazon's bestseller, one of the Amazon's bestseller. Moving slightly into the book about the characters, there must be a good amount of time spent on defining the character names, especially the way you call in short forms the Maida, Dada, and Maker Fantosh. Were you drawing inspiration from your kitchen, or did you try to name them so that they are not healthy?
Well, growing up, we didn't get ghee, by the way. 70s ghee was a very rare commodity. You had to get what is called as Vanaspati ghee. Vanaspati is essentially means, what I would call as artificial ghee. And one of the brands of artificial ghee was Dalda, right? I mean, today's generation, I don't know, you guys are spoiled. You all get Amul. You get the real thing. We used to live on these things. So I wanted to bring that thing because the dalda wasn't quite like ghee. It was oily, and it used to be a pain to clean it afterwards. And those days there were no dishwashers. Everybody had to do it by their hand. And I used to get my turn. My mom never spared me, saying just because I was a boy that I had to do a lot of work in the kitchen too. So at any rate, so that's a good thing because I can appreciate the work that gets done in a kitchen. So that's how the name Dalda came. But remember, I mean, those of us who know the name Dalda know, Dalda is something that is like sticky, it's slippery, you can't catch it. It's one of those to try. And so the nickname kind of hints the kind of personality that person is.
Yeah, definitely. And So, how long did it take to write this book? So, definitely it came after the demonetization. So, that's quite evident.
Right.
So, starting after like November 8, 2016. So, should we say that you immediately started with this book, or you took your time to do your researches, etc.? And yeah, so the total amount of time that you spent in just penning it down, penning your ideas down. And I would also like to understand that how your family and your friends perceive it when they first read the book.
um, I'm going to be in trouble for this. My family hasn't fully finished the book. They've all read excerpts, and I've given them each a book. So there is no excuse for them to say that, oh, I didn't get the book, mom is reading it. No such thing. I gave each one a book, and they still haven't completely read the book. However, they kind of know what the book is about, because remember, this is my first book of fiction, and I had to run it by an audience to find out what the reaction would be. So I would read out some passages to my family and ask them for their inputs. One way I think I'm lucky in that I don't have much of an ego. I don't mind somebody telling me on my face what they think of me. And I just think of it as a learning experience and see maybe there is something here that I need to correct myself. So that always helps me. And so they have read it, and people tell them how good a book there is, and then suddenly then they'll read another 10 pages. I don't think anyone has still finished the book, because this book, when I was writing it, I knew I wanted it to be in the form of a web series. I did not want it to be in the form of a 2-hour movie, because I didn't think that a 2-hour movie would do justice to the whole story, because this story format also is a little different from having like 4 characters or 5 characters. If you think about it, right, 4 or 5 in a novel, you have 4 or 5 characters, and then people know which one is. Whereas mine, I have 25 plus. So that's why I first published who's what, and what is the intent, why is that person's reason, and then in the chapters as they go, there is a bit of a disconnect at the beginning, at least, because things are happening in various places, so I have to present that. And this was sort of a bit of experimentation. I was inspired by a movie called Crash, Crash, that won Academy Awards, I think, if I'm not wrong. This happened in 1997, if I'm not wrong. Again, it happens in LA, 5 different stories, and each one, they spend about 10 minutes in each story, and then everybody comes together towards the climax, and then I know, okay, why that person and this person was described, and so on and so forth. So in my mind, I was trying to create something like that, and the story demanded it. Okay, let me put it that way. Also, the story demanded it. Why would they want to have counterfeit money enter Kochi, when they used to always talk about counterfeit money coming in the other opposite direction, from the borders of Nepal or from the borders of Bangladesh? Because every time India would say counterfeit currency caught. Where is it caught? Either in Balda district in West Bengal, or somewhere near Gorakhpur in the Nepal border. I could clearly see that this book needed multiple places, and then we had to tie it up together. And the fact that the story of UPA, if you look at it, especially the period from 2011, post 2G scam verdict up until 2014, it had a lot of interesting incidents that happened. And without really going there, without being present there, without being present even as a fly on the wall there, I kind of conjured, maybe this is what happened. Maybe this is why a certain individual did this. So it's a bit of a, 2 or 3 stories in one book. People have still been able to appreciate the fact that I did it this way, because you can think of it like, I can make a book just about the assassination part, just the that part alone. Start from the beginning, and there's a very tight book, we can do it. But the whole idea is not that. That was just a manifestation of the root cause. You see, so that is the whole idea here, to try and tell you your root cause is that politics is pandering to particular segment, thinking that that segment is going to work, vote unitedly as a vote bank. Unfortunately, it is true today. And I'm hoping that this will open up people's eyes to see how everybody is being taken advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and now that you brought this point, before I dive into the black money and other counterfeit currency related questions, yeah, now that you mentioned that, yeah, you are getting feedback from different people or the readers. So, would you like to share some of the feedback?
Look at Amazon. In Amazon, there are lots of reviews of 200 plus, and many of them have said. I'll just give you the common thing. When they panned it, they said that this is absolute trash, but they didn't give the facts on why they said they thought it was trash. Some said, okay, anyone who is following Indian politics knows all this happened or something like that. Essentially, they were not willing to accept that this was a book of fiction. However, they failed to explain to me what comes off as the characters and what they were in real, assuming that you were able to draw parallels. So it is difficult to do that. But those who liked it said that it's an incredibly complicated topic that has been laid out in an easy to understand manner, and it's a real page turner. To me, that wanting to make it a page turner was very important. And I'll tell you why. Reading as a habit has fallen away world over, not just in India. People don't want to read anymore because there is this sense of instant gratification. You get the message in 140 characters, now 280 characters on Twitter, and at best 2-3 paragraphs. You want to get it all. Now, how do you force somebody to read the whole book, not make them to read, oh, first few pages, okay, this is the thing, let me go to the end and see how this thing ends, right? In my book, you cannot do that. You have to read the whole thing. So it's in a way, it's like Maniratnam movie. He created camera tricks such that a copy of the movie was very difficult to watch using your home video recorder and so on. You had to go and get the experience in the movie theater. So it was one of those things where I said, I need to make them to read every chapter. So so as to understand how the progression goes. So a few things like that I did. And I'm really hoping that fiction makes a comeback, because India has such a rich history to tell in a fictional form. I don't know how many of you watched this movie called Kalyug. It came in 80s, I think. And it was produced by Shashi Kapoor, one of those movies where Shashi Kapoor actually had to act. And he does a fine job, by the way. And I think it was Shyam Benegal or Girish Karnad, one of them who directed the movie. Fantastic, but it's actually based on Mahabharata in contemporary style. So there is such a rich history that needs to be told to our readers, and we are not doing that. So I would like for fiction to make a comeback, and I'm hoping that, already you see Amish Tripaঠি's books. It's not really fact. It's more closer to fiction, in my opinion, and it has been tremendously well received. So hopefully this is going to continue. Even Ashwin Sanghi is definitely fiction. He just uses some things that happened, and then he tries to, again, he's now becoming more and more the Da Vinci of Indian mythology, or Indian itihasa, you should say. So history, fiction is making a comeback, but there is room for many more authors, and I'm hoping that people will start thinking, oh, Sree Iyer has told the formula how to write a book. Let me see if I can do this. Take one story here, take another event there. Let me try and see if I can knot this together. Go for it, guys. There are lots of stories.
Thank you, Sree Iyer. I hope fiction will make a comeback after people start reading your book. Since you brought this topic, container with suspected fake currency in Cochin port, why was media not able to cover this exclusively back then? Had it been given sufficient importance, the problem with fake currency would have been largely broadcasted, and the level of security intrusion that happened could have been exposed. So was media blindfolded?
Well, I think it was reported in the local vernaculars, regional dailies, that this thing indeed happened. Now, I did not talk to some of the people who graced my book events, but when I was in Kochi, the chief guest was the ex-Director General of Police, Dr. T.P. Senkumar, and also Sri T.G. Mohandas, for whom I have a lot of regard. And Mr. T.G. Mohandas came on a hangout with P. Gurus, and he said that the fact that easy money was available to the minority community was brought home to him in as early as in 1995. He said a friend of his heard over the loudspeaker on a Friday prayer exhorting Muslims, saying that if you need money to buy a house, any house, get in touch with us. And there was a information given. You talk to this person, they'll help you find buy the house. So this sort of financing, there's nothing wrong with it if the money is obtained in a legal way where taxes were paid and the money was earned in a proper way. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's when this thing gets a life of its own, and a lot of truths that came that day really stunned me. Like Dr. Senkumar said that every piece of useful property along the highway in Kerala and every oceanfront and riverfront property is all owned by the Muslims. And that's an amazing coincidence. Sure, many of them went in 70s to the Gulf. Those days, in the Gulf had a policy up until I think 89, they would favor, people of Muslim ethnicity to come and work there. Yes, there was a certain amount of prosperity because of that, but this Kuwait war changed all that. After the Kuwait war, the frustration for the Kuwaiti rulers was to see people from Palestine living in Kuwait rooting for Saddam Hussein. You see, so this kind of messed the whole situation up. And after that, for about 10-15 years, they said, okay, we want more apolitical people. And Indians, expat Indians, are some of the most hardworking people. They never indulge in local politics. They don't have an opinion about it. They just put their head down, do the best they can, and then save money, send money home, and have a comfortable life. So these things changed. However, what had been happening was the meteoric rise in wealth of people who are abject commoners, who could not have had, other than winning a lottery ticket, which is again a legally earned thing. I mean, you buy the lottery ticket, there is a deduction at the front, you have to pay that much money. In fact, lottery is not given all at once, it is given in installments. So you paid the interest also, and the taxes also in installments. So that's not what I'm talking about. This is essentially overnight somebody becoming rich, not knowing what to do with the money. So these are some of the things that were being played about. And he said, Dr. T.P. Senkumar said, I think 2006, he was the managing director of Kerala State Road Transport Corporation, KSRTC. And there will be a lot of collection of tickets. I mean, money is always in rupees, right? I mean, people will pay for their travel in rupees. And he said they used to come across what they thought was fake currency. And one day he said, I myself went to the State Bank of India and I presented to the cashier. I knew that one of them was fake, but I didn't tell the cashier beforehand which was fake and which was real. He said, I presented both notes and I told him one of them is fake. Can you identify it? And the cashier identified the real thing as the fake. So that presented the problem. So even banks were getting fooled by the authenticity of this currency. So all these things led up to the story. I think maybe the mainstream media did not want to report it because of perhaps the confidence thing, right? Even Modi, till now, officially, no one has said, yes, that there was a lot of fake currency that came in and went in undetected into the mainstream. Nobody has said that yet. So there is this confidence thing. If you say that, then what happens? And India was not ready with an alternative, at least after 2016, Paytm, online payment, Beam, UPI, all these methods have come now. So you really don't need to take cash with you. Most of the people now accept Paytm payments or one of these electronic payments. And in fact, Professor RV used to always joke that RBI should declare chocolate eclairs as legal tender for 5 rupees. Because if the guy didn't have change, he gave you an eclair. Here, take it. but I am a diabetic. Oh, take it. So this kind of stuff used to happen. So that alternative was not there prior to demonetization. In fact, now after COVID, I will see the I expect that there'll be even more acceleration to only online payments, because there is a fear that the virus could stick on the notes for up to 48 hours. Today, I ship in US. I don't even forget about currency. I don't use currency. Even the credit card I do, it's like a scanner where I keep it from a distance, and the scanning machine just scans the barcode to get the details. So we are not even trying to touch any surface when at the time of paying for your goods. So that is the amount of precautions we are taking. So I'm hoping that this menace of counterfeiting will slowly go away. And it's happening with collusion. Okay, it's not something that's happening in isolation. It's happening with collusion, and that needs to change. I'm hoping that it'll change soon.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree there, because recently I visited India and I was a bit surprised because those roadside tellers, those chai walas, those yeah, chaat walas, they have now the Paytm. It was quite easy to use. Apparently, I was the one who was not having a Paytm and carrying a credit card. It was a bit awkward at that time. Nevertheless, now that you also talk about Kerala, but it is not Kerala as a only state which does these kind of black trades. So yeah, it was Cochin was one of I would say the epicenter. But then there are many places across India where this counterfeit currency or illegal trade that is happening, and more to the fact that Kerala is being portrayed as a state which is most I would say forward in terms of literacy. It's one of the state which is called as a most literate state and all. So how do you think yeah, the people of Kerala are taking it?
Well, if this were to happen in any other state to any other community, they would still grab it. Come on now, somebody is giving you free money, and for that you need to, be a little bit flexible about your morals. This is so, but the thing why it happened for in Kerala is that the dissemination of fake currency, it gets a little harder unless you have a very literate state. Okay, so somewhere somebody will say, oh, somebody came and give, you see what I'm saying? Every player had to stay quiet and only say something exactly to the other side. You see, so there is a little bit of education involved that makes this process smooth. And even today, how many people have come and told that, yes, this happened, I got rich overnight? It is not possible. You have to, go back to the, tax returns of people for about 15 years to try and find out that one jump. And even assuming that, they paid their taxes, because in India, if you don't pay income tax, I don't know how the income tax guys can catch you, especially if you are not somebody who's entered the taxpayer bracket. So Mr. Chidambaram said that even if you made 0 rupees in a year, you still have to file income taxes. But there was always this feeling that, if I am only making cash-based things, I'm not going to pay taxes. In fact, there's an interesting story about how an income tax officer caught a vada pav seller on the streets of Mumbai. And he would go and watch this guy, and he would be having brisk sales. But whenever, he would say, hey, listen, you made so many things today. I watched for about half an hour. You made so much money today. How come you're not paying taxes? And he would say, no, I don't get it every day. Maybe you are my lucky charm. When you are here, I'm getting a lot. Very cleverly, he would say that I'm not really making a lot of money. So then this income tax officer thought, I have to catch this guy. This guy is making way too much money and not paying any taxes. So you know what he did? He started collecting the used pieces of paper. I mean, think about it, roadside guy, right? It's like a newspaper thing. They'll cut it up into 4 inches or 8 inches paper square, and then give you like a vada pav with all the other stuff. So the used paper is just thrown either in the dustbin there or around the shop. Somewhere you'll find it. And the guy actually collected them, and he said, over a period of time, I saw that 1 week you did so many things, and he didn't come and do it. He had somebody else collect it, and he had the whole proof to the guy. Okay, you made so much, you better pay now. So that is the extent to which somebody has to go to make people to pay taxes. So you had a perfect storm in a sense that people were not really looking, and money came in. And once the money came in, it was also very cleverly layered in for someone to buy up the real estate. And especially I've heard stories where they were willing to pay even 5 times the market value. 5 times, not 5% or So it's 5x. So you're listing your house for 1 crore. The guy is willing to give you 5 crores. Nobody asked any questions. The thing went through. In fact, that is how the real estate boom happened in India. It's a false real estate boom. Today, what has happened is the middle class cannot afford to buy houses that they could have sometime before. Because today there are lots of other restrictions also. If you want to buy a house, you want to be close to where you work. Otherwise, commute itself becomes a huge problem. The other consideration in India is schools. How good are the schools where you live? Will the children be able to go to good school? All sorts of things. So long story short, this, in my opinion, this fake currency thing created a huge boom in real estate, and you're still seeing that continue. Real estate prices have not dropped in India at all. And that's a very big mystery to me. How come the seller can hang on to the property knowing fully well that nobody is going to be able to afford to pay that thing? Where is the big farishta that's going to come in and say, oh, no problem, you are located at the right place, I'll pay you what you want? There are houses that are on the market for, apartment complexes on the market for 39 months, 42 months, 4 years, 5 years. And you know what kind of damage one monsoon does to housing in India, right? After one season, you'll see all the leaks, everything will crack, the walls become disfigured, faulty construction, maybe not the right amount of cement and sand and so on. These are all general problems. What I'm trying to say is this fake currency has invested people's wealth into real estate, and that has made it very, very unaffordable for many people.
Thank you, Sree. Coming to your point on chaiwalas, I have a few of my friends who are saying that I should start a tea shop opposite to an MNC, because that was one of the flourishing businesses back then. One of our viewers, Lakshmi, has a question here. Since the fake currency is so unidentifiable from real, how do we trust what has come back to the system through demonetization?
You cannot. The best way I would suggest everyone do is to deal with online transactions as much as possible. And don't worry about, a small change here and there, 1,000, 2,000, that's par for the course. The government is seized of the situation. They are trying to make changes. Now, this is something that is subtle, and I believe this is happening, and I have no proof to say this is happening, but I believe that the government is phasing out 2,000 rupee notes. Phasing out meaning like, not printing new currency, letting the thing run out the system. And it is my belief that over time, 1,000 also will be phased out, and so will 500. The biggest denomination will be only 200. See, at 200 rupees, it starts becoming expensive for someone to counterfeit it, because unless you get it 99.99999% accurate, right, people will get caught. So for that to happen, the whole country needs to adopt a online based thing. And I wish somebody would take this pain to explain to them that this is how the country needs to move forward. This is good for everybody, that you take out the counterfeit currency from your system. That makes a safer country. It is actually safer country, I can tell you. It's the safety of the country that is involved in this. And there's another story that I read in post the 2013 IPL thing, where the 3 players were caught, remember, from Rajasthan Royals. They said that even if you make money off of IPL betting, right, they said half the money that was coming in to the winner was counterfeit. So this was another conduit for them to let counterfeit flow in through the system. As long as the banks couldn't catch it, nobody was the wiser. This thing went on. So lots of small things like this. And I'm hoping that if 200 is the biggest tender that you can use, you see in United Kingdom, it's only 50 pounds. You don't even have a 100-pound note anymore. You see, and euro used to have 500. I have actually written articles in P-Gurus where euro has withdrawn a larger denomination. I believe it is now 100 euros. That is the biggest. And so is US dollar, only $100. You don't get anything above that. They used to have $1,000. They used to have coins also. All that is gone. Nobody's, they stopped doing that a long time ago. So it essentially makes counterfeiting not a very profitable business. Then it will fade away on its own.
Thank you, Sree. I hope India too moves a motion to bring its highest denomination currency to 200 zone. Coming back to your point on literacy in Kerala, I had a question. We know Kerala is known as God's own country, but it's saddening to hear some of its problems like pro-ISIS activities, and they have still been portrayed as the leader among the states in terms of literacy. How can this be possible where a high literate state has such a problem?
This is not something that is something new. It's been there for a long time. You have, again, the makings of a slightly different society in Kerala. They say that the amount of Muslims in Kerala is only 26% according to 2011 census. But people in the know tell me that now the next census is up, that it has risen to 31%. And history tells us that once a state or region crosses 30% Islam, then that state is doomed. I'm not saying that it's going to be a big problem, but many people are now waking up to this fact that there is a problem, there is a population explosion going on. Look, if you have fake currency, then you don't have a worry about how you're going to feed multiple mouths. And if you have a way of sustaining this, they don't even allow police to enter many of the mosques on Fridays. The whole mischief, I believe, happens on Fridays. Police can't go in there. They complain if police goes in there. Sometimes the police is also corrupt. They look the other way. You have all sorts of things going on. So if you don't have the fear of how you will feed the extra mouth, then you will keep on procreating. See, this is the other problem that fake currency has created. I'm telling you, the entire National Investigative Agency staff today, if they all sit and go through the records of Kerala to find out some of the bigger defaulters or the collaborators in this, it will not be enough. They'll have to grow 3-4 times the number of people to just go through and systematically. India's very, very strong judicial system will require you to present a rock solid case. You will have to make sure that every case presented is correct, that this person made money beyond his means. Those things have to be done. I don't know if the government has the stomach for that, because there's so many challenges that face the country every day. So, but this is the truth. If you don't have that fear, then you're just going to keep on growing. And I've also noticed one thing: being literate doesn't mean being educated. There are two different things. And thanks to social media, polarization is so quick that if you take a certain line of thinking, then you only want to look for that kind of adds more value to that line of thinking. And these algorithmic engines of social media like Facebook, Twitter, they tend to give you only that. So you have an amplification of a fake idea happening. It's like an echo chamber where you're just hearing this thing over and over and over and over. And at some point, reality strikes when something really, really bad happens. But then it gets buried in the next news cycle. 24 hours later, something else happens. You just kind of shove it to the back of your mind and go on. Systemically, this needs to change. And it's a very, very big problem. Now I'm also hearing that fake currency is making its way into the adjoining states, where people are buying up property where it's like 5 times the value. And anyone will sell this thing, because right now selling real estate in India is very hard. So somebody is buying strategically some areas of a particular state because there is a plan. There's a long-term plan that if something were to happen, this is how. So this is what I've been told in the Hangout, that why did the Muslims buy all riverfront property, all the road property along the roads and along the ocean? Think about it. If for instance there is a revolt in Kerala and they say that we are going to secede or something like that, I'm just saying some extreme situation, how will the rest of the country react? It needs to come in either via roads or via, like for example, Mopla. Another Mopla rebellion happens. Right now, Malabar, what is this? Malappuram. Malappuram is, I think, 70% Muslim. The remaining 30%, I don't know how they are going through without fear, because you see so many different ways in which the incitement is happening. So if something were, like, God forbid, I'm not saying it's in the works, something like that were to happen, then the rest of the country will see all the approach roads being cut off. No way to come in from the ocean, no way to come in through the rivers, no way to come through the roads. So the only way you can do it is from by air, but you can't have, infantry, you can't have troops, because if you want to take over and maintain peace, stability in a region, you got to have thousands of troops come in there. You have to have flag marches. You have to have 144, installed. You have to make sure that essentials move back and forth. All these things require you to assume that some things are available, and that is being denied. So there is a bigger plan afoot. One other thing that Mr. Mohandas, I encourage everybody to watch that one hangout with TG Mohandas about Kerala. He said that Kerala Muslims tend to never create any trouble within the state. It's always exported. The proof for that is, if you look at the JMU, which is where the first anti-CAA agitation started, look at who were caught. Where did they belong to? Kerala. So that, and there's lots of stuff. Once you look at the data and then you can really connect it. Again, I mean no, disrespect, ill will towards anyone. All of us are, at the end of the day, Sanatanis. We were all from the same dharma. It's too bad that some had to resort to this religion. We didn't have choice. It was either death or convert in many instances. However, I don't want people to stop thinking. Never stop thinking. There is a bigger problem. There is a bigger problem afoot, and the majority is being very patient, and that patience is being worn thin, especially like the way the Tablighi Jamaat people, attendees, when they knew that they were all coronavirus positive. What is the need to go and spit at the law and order people? What is their fault? At that time, we didn't know the severity or the fact that it's not going to be as bad as it turned out. What if, the entire load of policemen who arrested the first lot all died of coronavirus? I'm just saying, God forbid, if that had happened. So this intent, when you do a spit, then you are intending that, the other person be harmed. And these are all things that should be avoided. And it's very, very unfortunate that, this kind of a thinking needs to permeate. And I'm hoping that through some of these videos, people understand that there is a bigger universe, you have a role towards a society, and that needs to be carried out by each and every one of us.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to go back to the previous discussions that we were having around the currency notes, the number printed on the currency notes. So indeed, I totally agree there, where you say that we should have only the small amount currency notes and not the big ones. Yeah. So it also makes it difficult to transport it from one place to the other. So it's
Yes.
easily recognizable indeed. But in this, I would like to take a note on the money that came back to the system. So now we say, as per the RBI side, it is 99.3% that was returned after the demonetization. But you say that in reality, it's way more than that. So from where do you get this figure?
Again, this is a confidence thing. If more money comes into the system than what was printed by the regulating authority, that would be an admittance of the system, admission of the system, that indeed there were counterfeit notes, and indeed they were not able to detect them, right? And Modi did a few things right after demonetization. Many cooperative banks were banned from converting their cash. I invite your attention to Mr. Sharad Pawar, who first supported demonetization, and then on learning that some of the cooperative banks in Maharashtra are not going to be allowed to exchange money, immediately went back and opposed it. One wonders why. You see, this is where I kind of find it frustrating that the MSM doesn't ask all the good questions. Hey, just leave everything else aside. Ask the politician point blank, what made you say this is a good move today, and 24 hours later you do a volte-face? Hey, what changed? And just drill into this thing, do your homework, and call them for their lies. That part of the journalism that India used to have is no longer there. I'm really sad to say. So this is something that's been festering for a long time. And today, if the government acts, then they say, oh, they are singling us out because we are speaking the truth. Like, look at NDTV, the gall of Pranay Roy. After being caught with the hand in the cookie jar, he calls a press conference in Press Club, brings people like Arun Shourie, Fali Nariman, truly upstanding individuals. Don't know what he told them, what they understood, but they all said that, oh, there is, NDTV is being unfairly charged. That's not true. This whole book of NDTV frauds was nothing but trying to create an understandable version of what were essentially government findings, income tax department's findings about the source of money for NDTV. And all I did was to lay it out in layman language. Otherwise, it's very difficult to pour through, hundreds of pages of documentation that the income tax officers generate. And they have to do that because by law, they're required to do that. They have to prove beyond doubt that there was something that was hanky-panky that happened. You see, so the system is broke. And in fact, it is so broke that if there is an honest administrative services officer, I'm talking about all administrative services, not just IAS, they actually are getting hounded because of their honesty. Look at what happened to D. Rupa, IPS officer. All she said was, look, I'm seeing Shashikala leave the police and go and do shopping and come back. And she showed the video before and after, CCTV camera find. And she gets rewarded by being transferred to some non-consequential post. You see, this is not right. So the politicians know that their compatriots who are cooling their heels in jail are more equal than the others. And that is not right. You have to draw a line. And I'm not saying that one party is better than the other. In my opinion, they're all shades of gray. And it's just how grayer or how whiter you are. That's all it is. It's just a percentage. So these things have to change. And these will change if people start asking questions. And when you ask questions, right, having books like this helps your cause because you start reflecting why this is happening. And then when the politicians and even the local dadas start realizing that people are onto you, right, they have to stop doing many of these things. Let people live their lives. No more pandering. No more giving one guy more than the other and making it look like that guy is really suffering. And there is nothing like that. That uniform civil code has to be passed as a law and also implemented fairly across the spectrum. You cannot have one population following rules of modern society and another one following the rules of what was drafted 300 years ago. That just doesn't work. And this is being brought home to us in many ways. And triple talaq was the first attempt to try and bring some modernity into them. But nikah halala has not been banned yet. And that is also not right. That should also be addressed. I don't know what the government is going to do. So I think the opposition saw all these things, like trains lining up, right? Next, this is going to happen. Next, this is going to happen. That's why they picked a fairly innocuous thing called the CAA and ground it out there saying that, oh, this is what is happening. And they conjured up what was going to be in NRC. Oh, this is what this is, this intention is, this is what it is, this is what it is. And a lot of lava has flown out of many mouths. And I'm seeing this now, this tail is wagging it even in countries like United States. 2 city councils have passed a resolution saying that CAA is discriminatory. And I have told them, this is 3 pages. It's written in English. You can read it and you can point out where there is discrimination. And nobody wants to do that because they believe that somebody has given us this data. And if we do this for them, this vote bank is secure. So you talk about, literacy in Kerala. What about US? 100% literate. Everybody knows what's being done. In fact, the average American on the street is much more leery of their politicians. They know they are corrupt. They know they have flexible versions of truth. They know all this stuff. And yet, those who are in power believe that, oh, okay, I have this vote bank. And Minnesota has a huge population of immigrants. And they turned around, guess what they did? They elected one of their own as the congresswoman from there. And this person has a lot of baggage. And now we have to see if this baggage is going to pull the entire Democratic Party down in 2020 elections, or it's going to survive. And either way, it's bad. But the Democratic leadership is not doing anything about it. And I'm very unhappy with that. One thing about US is even if the president, like Donald Trump, is speeding on a highway, and if the policeman catches him, he will give him a ticket. He cannot escape it. So to that extent, the law and order works, and the justice system also is pretty strong in terms of interpreting the law. But yet, these kinds of things keep happening. So we have this problem across the world now. Perhaps it is because of too much information that comes to you. Perhaps it is because of this channeling of what you want to hear being, told to you more and more via social media. So essentially, your opinion becomes an echo chamber. It comes back to you, and you think, oh, okay, maybe this is right because so many people have retweeted it. That's false. You have to know that truth is somewhere outside there. So it's a moving target, but we at least now we are becoming aware of it.
Yeah, I agree there, because leadership brings in responsibilities as well. As they say, with great power comes in great responsibility.
That's true.
And I think you also have this quote in your book wherein you also indicate that if you fail, then the person who is leading will take the responsibility. And if you succeed, then the credit will go to the person. Yeah, so
Yes.
that's how the leadership should be. That's how a leader should steer his team, his government. So the honest officers, they are not punished for what they are doing, and the people who are doing the bad things, they are put behind the bars. Having said that, I also remember another quote from your book that states that about the income. Yeah, wherein you indicated that the income should not be taxed, rather the expenditure. Yeah, well, this sounds good on paper, yeah? But in India, where we have the majority of people below the poverty line, there is a sparse difference between equality of income, I would say. So how do you think that this can reflect in an Indian economy?
The I don't know if you've done legal contracts. Usually what happens is, supposing there's a small company, there's a big company, and they're trying to agree on a contract. The small company is pretty much forced to do what the big company tells you to do. The only thing the small company can do is to add another addendum where they might try to add something that is more favorable to them. So in this context, India, 51% of India's population is in agriculture. They only contribute 16 to 17% of the GDP. Now, anyone who's in agriculture, whether it is 1 cent land or 100 acres of land, they don't pay taxes. Now, you cannot ask them to now start paying taxes, because this is 1 in 2 persons. That's going to be a riot. So that option is out. Instead, what you can do is find out what that person pays for. He does need to have basic commodities. He does need to have food, water, essential utilities, what have you, right? So that is why this brings in parity, where you say, don't tax somebody's income, tax somebody's consumption. And India being a savings-based economy, right? India is very careful about how it spends its money. So what would happen if you don't have to pay income tax? The money will go into your savings bank. And when the savings rate goes up, that means that is going to, in turn, help India's GDP, because the money will be available for banks to lend. I'm assuming, again, in a perfect condition, that the banks do know whom to lend it to, lend it profitably and so on. So this is the system that will actually help you become more sustainable in the longer run. I mean, remember, this book was written before COVID hit. Now it is even more relevant you do this thing, because every country, it doesn't matter which country, every country needs to do a lot of things themselves. This thing about globalization, where I can squeeze 5 cents profit out of it if I get it done in Timbuktu and then have it shipped out, and then that part is not going to hold good anymore, because you're going to see more and more a return to what nature intended for human beings to do. I mean, look at our teeth. Our teeth tell us that we are supposed to be herbivores, not omnivores, not carnivores. We don't have the long tooth to cut through flesh. Or I'm just oversimplifying this, but very basically there is an assumption that human beings are supposed to be vegetarian. Cows don't eat meat unless you force feed them, and so on. Many elephants, hippopotamus, they don't eat meat. I believe hippopotamus sometimes does, but the elephants definitely don't eat meat. So the habits now, the eating habits have to change. We are going to have almost always have this fear. If I eat a particular form of meat, what if there is contamination in that? They are saying that the next big virus is going to be based on something that's going to be on chicken. I don't want to pander to rumors here, but anything that you are going to mass produce, there's going to be always this risk. And I have seen these beef farms in the United States where the whole thing of the lifespan of that particular animal, poor thing, is to just grow, and it will be given just enough room to sit and stand, but it's like a box, and they are fed food, they become fat, and at some point they are taken off to the abattoir, and that's it. So there is no freewheeling thing. There is it's really cruel the way that is done, because that's how you make money off of poultry. That's how you make money off of beef. So a lot of these things are going to change, and we need to be able to adjust ourselves to that. And I'm hoping that this tax thing and trying to be more careful with where you spend, how you eat, who you meet. You see, Namaste is coming back in fashion now, because again, same thing, spreading through touch. So, and these are here for good. You're going to see this thing play out over the next 2-3 years, maybe, because any virus is not going to die away just like that. It will always be having something. And we are hoping that mass immunity will set in at some time. And that point, mob immunity will set in. And that point, it will just become part of your system. Your immunization is strong enough to combat that. I know it's a long answer, but that is why I said that.
Thank you, Sree. Do you have time for one more question, Sree?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Did you receive any threats after the book? It is very clear who the characters are and whether any suits filed against you. This is a question from one of our viewers, Mohinder.
You see, fictional books usually don't get sued because there is no need for the author to prove that this is what happened. That it sounds like Indian politics is just a coincidence, that's all. And it's easy to prove that people are not what they are portrayed to be. Some trait may be portrayed in the thing. And as far as threats go, I probably had more fear when I wrote my first book, which was NDTV Frauds, where I was taking squarely aim at some of the bigwigs of the Indian industry and politics. So you just live with it. You cannot do nothing just because there will be somebody who will be threatening you. And so what? We all know that our life is like a sealed petrol tank, and no one knows how much petrol is there in every one of our seals. It's sealed. So so you don't worry about that too much. When the time comes for you to go, you will have to go. And you could be the wrong place at the wrong time, but that's what that's what our religion teaches us, that you're not dead, you're going to have a rebirth, hopefully in a better form than what you are today. So I believe in the Kala Chakra, by the way. And you have to, at some point, you have to leave it to the belief, because there is so much that happen where you cannot explain it except in terms of the existence of something beyond you. And that's what we call as God. And I have had many personal experiences which reinforce this. So I know that there is something called as a God, that somebody is there beyond us who actually kind of charts a few things in a certain way. And you just leave it to that person.
Thank you, Sree. And one last question. I'm sure there are many audiences like me who are waiting for your series. sequel? Any updates, how far it's going and things like that?
The sequel's coming along really well. I would say more than halfway done. And like anything, right? There's something called as the Pareto principle. 80% takes 20% of the time, and the remaining 20% takes 80% of the time. And that is the phase I'm in now, where I have to make sure that things properly fall in place. And this is also a sort of a challenge for me, because people are, their appetite is whetted. They're looking for something really good. And I want to make sure that I don't disappoint any one of my readers. Also, I'm learning from some of the things I did in this book that I'm trying to correct in this next one in terms of like flow and things like that, nothing else. But it's coming along quite well. I have to figure out how to release it in a timely manner, because today people's pockets are pinched. And so there is that economic consideration that is also coming into play. But certainly today is good news that by 8th June, everything is going to be open. That as long as you take precautions, that you can lead normal lives in India is a big plus. And I mean, most of the world is now beginning to understand this thing. And so hopefully it will be released soon. I don't know the date yet. I'm still waiting to see how things pan out. And every country will have a V or something like a shape recovery. There will be a big recovery, and it's at some time during that I would want to probably release the book, so that when people are feeling happy and they're curious about things, and some of the instances in the book need to be really told at a time when the hunger for that is also high. So there is a bit of that, but doesn't prevent me from getting everything ready, right? And keeping it in my back pocket and then timing the release. That's how I'm going to do it this time. Remember that I'm self-publishing again. I'm not going to use any publisher. At this time, I haven't decided if the second book also I want to do that or not. Still thinking about it, because having a name publisher, takes some of the risk off of me. And it's a good thing to have, but I have to think it through a little bit more. And I'm not at a point now to submit it for somebody to take a call and say, well, I'll publish this or I will not publish this. I'm getting there. It's happening.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because I see that there are a number of comments on the YouTube live chat as well, wherein people are asking about when is the next sequel coming in. So yeah, people are looking forward to it. Well, yes, I think we can go on and on, Mr. Iyer, like this. Yeah, it's really engaging to have such kind of discussions, but then yeah, we have to look at the time as well. So indeed, thank you for making time today to share your thoughts and expressions to Sambash. The book indeed elicits how black money plays a role in politics, terror, drug trade, I think even IPL, and many more. Yeah, how some privileged people use it to their advantage, while the common man, they remain as a mere spectator. So the book is indeed a very subtle attempt, and we recommend everyone to read, those who haven't read it yet. So before the sequel comes in, do make sure that you read this one. You never know when a book turns out to be an inspiration for a movie or a series to producers. So yes, it is good to have read this book. So we hereby conclude our discussion and wish you all the very best for the book. We thank
Thank
our
you.
eminent speaker, our team, our audience, you all for being part of this program. Do visit our webpage, SomeBash.com, to know more about upcoming events, and follow us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook to get notified about future programs. Now I request Hari to recite the Shanti Mantra before closing the session today.
Thank you, Kanaga. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.